Morning, Martina. Morning, Yusuf.
Good morning.
Morning, Mariam and Naqib. Good morning, Mariam. Mariam, good morning. Okay. Ganna Guda. Good morning, Ganna. Ganna Tamer. Abdurrahman Walid. Abdurrahman Baghdadi. So I have Ganna Guda, Abdurrahman Walid,
Yes, Mr.
Yahya. Morning. Abdurrahman Baghdadi, Walid, Ganna Guda.
Yes, Mr.
Hiya. Morning, guys. Jana Walid Osman. Morning, all. So there are about 11 students in the room so far. I'm just admitting the others. So there are 10 only. Nobody's joined or going to join. Type. Guys, if you refer to the weekly plan, you'll find that today we should be doing part 8. Part 8, as you can see in the screen in front of you, this is the beginning of part 7, but today we should be doing the third part of part 8. But because I know that most of you don't read on their own at home, I read this part with you. You should have read it on your own according to the weekly plan. Okay, part 7, the complete Duden dictionary and thesaurus. Duden may be related to the Jews or something, featuring champagne and accordions. A trilogy. Trilogy is a book which consists of 3 parts, a trilogy. Some sirens, a sky stealer, an offer, the long walk to the how, remember the how, the concentration camp, peace, an idiot, and some coatmen. These are some of the titles we're going to read in part 7. I'd like to remind you again, the people who have just joined, that we should be doing part 8. We are about to finish part 8 today, but I know that most of you don't read on their own. This is why I'm going to do part 7, try to cover part 7 or most of it today. But again, at home, you should be, or you should have finished part 7 and you should be reading part 8 today. Champagne and accordions. ياسمين السقا. Okay. In the summer of 1942, Yasin, I still have 2 people on the waiting list. Okay, Yasin and Kunuz. So there are about 17 students with me now. Guys, please join at the beginning of the meeting, because this way we waste about 5 times admitting people. Welcome Layan, welcome Kunuz, welcome Alia, Haya, Jana, Lolwa, Mariam, Martina, Tadris, and the other guys. This is Kiara joining, and this is Ryan. Okay, there are 21 students now. So about 8 people. I haven't seen Ali yet. Ali didn't take the quiz. Usama, this is Usama. Usama and Ali didn't take the quiz. Morning, Usama. Can you hear me? Usama Darwish. Why didn't you do the quiz, Usama, Monday?
Mr. I had a problem with the account.
But you didn't
Account
see me.
مش علي.
You didn't try to contact me. You missed it. You didn't
مستر
speak.
ما ردتش.
So why didn't you try again? Because I found out that you and Ali did Do the,
انا مستر هترايت بس ما كنتش عارف اخش على الاكونت.
no problem. But you didn't do it, and this way you missed it. Okay, you and Ali, please try that you didn't do it. And if you want to do it, you can ask Mr. Osama and Miss Lamia for permission and let them tell me to give it to you again, okay? Osama and Ali. Okay, now we have 21 students. I'll start now. Again, guys, I'd like to remind you, this is Ali. Hi. So we're still waiting for 7 other people to join us. Ali, good morning. Ali, can you hear me?
ايوه
Morning. You didn't do the quiz, Ali, right?
كويس.
The quiz, the Monday quiz.
لا عملت
You didn't do it. You didn't submit it. I
عملت والله.
received 27 responses. All of you except you and Osama. I didn't receive it. Ali, try. If you have done
مستر هو لو 27 يبقى حد واحد بس اللي ما سلمهوش مش 2.
it, you're 29.
لا احنا 28.
Are you sure?
29
You're 20.
بجد؟
I didn't see Ali.
29 بكير.
Okay, I didn't see
مستر
Ali.
النت عمال
احل واحد
بيطلعني.
تاني طيب ولا مستر؟
Excuse me?
احل واحد تاني؟
No, Ali, you didn't do it. What happened? Tell me what happened. I want to know what
انا
happened.
عملته، انا عامله حليته.
ما هو-
ايه طيب؟
حبيبي, you didn't.
مستر النت عمال بيطلعني.
طيب, this is Tadrus. What can I do? Is it my problem or your problem, dear?
والله ما اعرف يا مستر بس انا حليته يعني.
ماشي يا علي, خلاص انا بس انت اسمك ما وصلنيش, يعني اكيد محل.
طب اعمل ايه؟
انا مش عارف, اسال مستر اسامه, قول له عايز بيرميشن ان ناخد الكويز لان انا حليته, مستر ابراهيم بيقول ما استلموش, هو مس لميا بليز, وخلوهم يبلغوني عشان اديهولك تاني لو انت. اوكي
ماشي.
So again, guys, there are 23 students now. Again, we should be doing according to the weekly plan, chapter or part 8. But I know that you don't read on your own. This is why I'll start doing chapter or part 7 with you. But you should be reading until the middle of chapter 8 or part 8. And in this term exam from now, know that you are responsible for parts 6 and 7. In the quiz, you were responsible for part 5. In the term exam, inshallah, you'll be asked for parts 6 and 7. We should have finished 7 from last week. You should read it on your own. And if you have any question, tell me. And I'm going to read 7 with you. We'll cover as much as we can today. Champagne and accordions, I'll, if you don't mind, I'll mute you guys and unmute you only if I have a question. Sorry. So follow up, please. And if you don't know what's happening, please follow up in order that you would know what is happening or remember something for the exam. And try to read at home, please, on your own pace. Try to cover the parts in the weekly plan, please. In the summer of 1942, the town, and be ready, I'll ask some of you to read with me because I can't read all the time. In the summer of 1942, the town of Malking was preparing for the inevitable. When something is inevitable, this means it will happen. It will happen. There were still people who refused to believe that this small town, Malking, on Munich's outskirts, could be a target. The target of what? Of the British airplanes. The British planes which were hitting the special districts or towns or German cities, and it was Munich's turn. But the majority of the population was well aware that it was not a question of if, but when. Yani they were waiting to be hit anytime. Shelters were more clearly marked. The shelters under each house were checked. Windows were in the process of being blackened. You know, at that time, all the people were ordered to turn off the lights in order not to be an easy target for the airplanes. When an airplane is in the air and sees a light, they target this light. So the windows blackened for the nights, and everyone knew where the closest basement or cellar was. So they were ready. They were sure that they will be hit. But when? This is the question. For Hans Huberman, This uneasy development was actually a slight reprieve. At an unfortunate time, good luck had somehow found its way into his painting business. Uh, People with blinds were desperate enough to enlist his service to paint them. His problem was that black paint was normally used more as a mixer. Again, people wanted their windows to look black because they didn't want to be a target or a goal for the striking planes. But they used to paint their windows black, which made the business, let's say, prosperous, to darken other colors, and it was soon depleted and hard to find. Ali? Yes, Ali?
مستر كلمت مستر أسامة بيقول لي أسأل حضرتك.
Uh, uh, okay, Ali, I'll tell you later. I'll tell you later tonight, inshallah. I'll tell you and Osama what to do, okay? Okay, Ali?
أوكي ماشي شكرا مستر.
Uh, طيب. So the painting business has flourished. Why? Because most of the people were painting their windows black in order not to be a target for the striking planes. For Hans Hopperman, this we read this part. So what he did have was the knack of being a good tradesman, and a good tradesman has many tricks. Black paint was not in the market, maybe because many people were using it. He took coal dust, remember? Coal, or can you imagine it? Coal dust, and stirred it through. You know, coal is black. So he used coal dust and stirred it through, and he worked cheap. There were many houses in all parts of Malking in which he confiscated the window light from enemy eyes. So he painted, in other words, he painted many windows black, either using black paint. When the black paint wasn't there in the market, he used coal, and you know coal is black. On some of his work days, Liesel went with him. They carted his paint through town, smelling the hunger on some of the streets and shaking their heads at the wealth on others, some poor streets, some rich streets. Many times on the way home, women with nothing but kids and poverty would come running out and plead with him to paint their blinds. You know, the blinds are the curtains. So they were painted their blinds, the curtains black in order not to be seen. Frau Haller Frau Haller, I'm sorry, he said, I have no black paint left. This is a woman who urged him or who asked him to paint her blinds black. He would say, but a little further down the road, he would always break. There was tall man and long street tomorrow, he'd promise, first thing. And he would leave here and go and pass on his way, but he returns to her and says tomorrow, maybe. And when the next morning dawned, there he was painting those blinds for nothing. For nothing. He didn't take money, or because the woman was poor, and for a cookie or a warm cup of tea. That's his the wage he gets for this, the fees he gets for his job. The previous evening, he'd have found another way to turn blue or green or beige to black. Uh, Never did he tell them to cover their windows with spare blankets, for he knew they'd need them when winter came. So another way to hide or to blacken the windows is to use their spare blankets, but he knew it was winter and they needed the blankets. He was even known to paint people's blinds for half a cigarette. Half a cigarette, can you imagine it? Sitting on the front step of a house, sharing a smoke with the occupant. Sharing a cigarette with the occupant, with the owner of the house. Laughter and smoke rose out of the conversation before they moved on to the next job. When the time came to write, I remember this is death. I remember clearly what Liesel Memminger had to say about that summer. A lot of the words have faded over the decades. The paper has suffered from the friction of movement in my pocket, but still, many of her sentences have been impossible to forget. These are some of the sentences. A small sample of some girl written words. This is a small sample of Liesel's written words about that summer, the summer of 1942. That summer was a new beginning, a new end. When I look back, I remember my slippery hands of paint because she used to go with her father, and the sound of Papa's feet on Munich streets or street. And I know that a small piece of the summer of 1942 belonged to only one man, who else would do some painting for the price of half a cigarette. That was Papa. That was typical, and I loved him because he was the star, because all the people wanted to blacken their blinds or windows, and he was the only one who did that job at that time. Every day when they worked together, he would tell Liesel his stories. There was a Great War. The Great War until now is World War One, because World War Two hasn't or is still in action, and how his miserable handwriting helped save his life. We talked about this before. And the day he met Mama, he said that she was beautiful once in the past, and actually very quiet spoken. Hard to believe, I know, but absolutely true. Each day there was a story, and Liesel forgave him if he told the same one more than once. Okay? Again, he used to tell her some stories again and again. She forgave him for this. On other occasions, when she was daydreaming, Papa would dab her lightly with his brush, right between the eyes, if he misjudged and there was too much on it. A small path of paint would dribble down the side of her nose. Can you imagine it? She would laugh and try to return the favor and do the same to him, dab him with her brush. But Hans Huberman was a hard man to catch out at work. It was there that he was most alive. He was always active. Whenever they had a break to eat or drink, he would play the accordion, and it was this that Liesel remembered best. Each morning, while Papa pushed or dragged the paint cart, Liesel carried the instrument. Better that we leave the paint behind, Hans told her, than ever forget the music. When they paused to eat, he would cut up the bread, smearing it with what little jam remained from the last ration card, or he'd lay a small slice of meat on top of it. They used to receive jam on a ration card, maybe distributed by the government, some a jar or two monthly, for example. This was their allotment. They would eat together, sitting on their cans of paint, and with the last mouthful still in the chewing stages, Papa would be wiping his fingers, unbuckling the accordion case, and ready to set off. Traces of breadcrumbs were in the creases of his overalls. Paint specks, hands made their way across the buttons and raked over the keys, or held on to a note for a while. His arms worked the bellows, giving the instrument the air it needed to breathe. He used to play the accordion. Liesel would sit each day with her hands between her knees in the long legs of daylight. She wanted none of those days to end. She enjoyed it very much, and it was always with disappointment that she watched the darkness stride forward. Everything became dark, and when it was night, when night falls, she used to feel sad because she enjoyed her work with her dad. As far as the painting itself was concerned, probably the most interesting aspect for Liesel was the mixing the paint. Like most people, she amused her papa, simply took her cart or his cart to the paint shop or hardware store and asked for the right color, and away he went. She didn't realize that most of the paint was in lumps in the shape of a brick. It was most of the, I hope you understand this, most of the paint was in the shape of lumps or like a brick. It was then rolled out with an empty champagne bottle. Champagne bottles, Hans explained, were ideal for the job, as their glass was slightly thicker than that of an ordinary bottle of wine. Uh, Once that was completed, there was the addition of water, whiting, and glue, not to mention the complexities of matching the right color. Again, the blinds were painted with a dark color. Why? Because they were afraid of the striking airplanes that will hit them one day in the near future. They were sure it will happen, but when they weren't sure. The science of Papa's trade brought him an even greater level of respect. It was well and good to share bread and music, but it was nice for Liesel to know that he was also more than capable in his occupation. He was a capable painter. He was skillful at his job. Competence was attractive. He was a competent painter, and this was attractive to her. One afternoon, a few days after Papa's explanation of the mixing, they were working at one of the wealthier houses just east of Munich Street. Papa called Liesel inside the early afternoon. They were just about to move on to another job when she heard the unusual volume in his voice. Once inside, she was taken to the kitchen because, again, he was painting the blinds of rich people now. So he called her, and where two older women and a man sat on delicate, highly civilized chairs. The women were well dressed. The man had white hair and sideburns like hedges. Tall glasses stood on the table. They were filled with crackling liquid. Well, said the man, here we go. Come and eat. He took up his glass and urged the others to do the same. So, looks like Liesel is invited to a rich meal. The afternoon had been warm. Liesel was slightly put off by the coolness of her glass. She looked at Papa for approval. He grinned, he smiled, and said, Prost, Mädel. Cheers, girl. He said to her, Cheers, girl, smile. Their glasses chimed together, and the moment Liesel raised it to her mouth, she was bitten by the fizzy, sickly sweet taste of champagne. She wasn't accustomed to it. Her reflexes forces her to spit straight onto her papa's overalls, watching it foam and dribble. A shot of laughter followed from all of them, and Hans encouraged her to give it another try. On the second attempt, she was able to swallow it and enjoy the taste of a glorious broken rule. It felt great. The bubbles ate her tongue, they prickled her stomach. Even as they walked to the next job, she could feel the warmth of pins and needles inside her from the taste of the champagne or the wine. Dragging the cart, the paint cart, Papa told her that those people claimed to have no money, although they were rich. So you asked for champagne? Why not? He took champagne instead of money. He looked across, and never had his eyes been to so silver. You know, Hans's eyes were always silver, and this time it was the most silver. I didn't want you thinking that champagne bottles are only used for rolling paint. He wanted her, or he warned her. Just don't tell Mama. Agreed? Can I tell Max? Sure, you can tell Max. In the basement, because Rosa wants money, not champagne. When she wrote about her life, Liesel vowed that she would never drink champagne again for it would never taste as good as it did on that warm afternoon in July. She enjoyed it the best, and she didn't want to drink it again because she wouldn't have the same feeling again. It was the same with accordions. She decided not to listen to accordions again because the accordion she listened to in July was the best. Many times she wanted to ask her papa if he might teach her to play the accordion, but somehow, sometimes always stopped her. Perhaps an unknown intuition told her that she would never be able to play it like Hans Huberman. Surely not even the world's greatest accordionists could compare. He was the best accordionist in the world to her. They could never be equals to the casual concentration on Papa's face, or there wouldn't be a paint work traded cigarette slouched on the player's lips. And they could never make a small mistake with a three-note laugh of hindsight, not the way he could. Yani, not any other accordionist will be the same like him with his cigarette, with his paint or the remains of paint on his face, and so on. At times in that basement, she woke up tasting the sound of the accordion in her ears. She could feel the sweet burn of champagne on her tongue. Sometimes she sat against the wall, longing for the warm finger of paint to wander just once more down the side of her nose, or to watch the sandpaper texture of her papa's hands. Of course, his hands were rough because of his work. If only she could be so oblivious again, if only she could forget to feel such love without knowing it, mistaking it for laughter and bread with only the scent of jam spread out on top of it. As we said before, some of the meal they had were just bread with jam spread on it. It was the best time of her life, but it was bombing carpet. Again, make no mistake, bold and bright, a trilogy of happiness. Trilogy again is something that is composed of three, would continue for summer's duration and into autumn. It would then be brought abruptly to an end, for the brightness and had shown suffering the way. Hard times were coming, like a parade. Duden dictionary meaning, we have Zufriedenheit, which means happiness. Zufriedenheit, coming from happy or enjoying. Pleasure and contentment, related words. Joy, gladness, feeling fortunate, or prosperous. This is the explanation of this German word. Zufriedenheit, sorry. Zufriedenheit means happiness. The suffix "heit" in German looks like the suffix "ness" in English: sadness, happiness, shyness, and so on. It makes an adjective a noun. Next part, the trilogy. Again, the trilogy is a three-part book, or something that is composed of three parts. I want someone to help me with reading. Who is ready? Who wants to read? I have 24 students, I think. No one wants to read? Put your hand up, please, if you want to read. Hello, grade 11. I want someone to help me with reading. Nobody at all wants to read? So I'll ask some guy to read. Ruhaim, are you there? Ruhaim?
Yes, mister.
Okay, can you help me, please?
Yes, okay.
Thank you very much.
Um, while Liesel worked, Rudy ran. He did laps of Hubert Oval, ran around the block, and raced almost everyone from the bottom of Himmel Street to Frau Diller's, giving varied head starts. On a few occasions, when Liesel was helping Mama in the kitchen, Rosa would look out the window and say, "What's that? What's that little sucker up to this time? All that running out there." Liesel would move to the window. "At least he hasn't painted himself black again." "Well, that's something, isn't it?" Rudy's reasons. In the middle of August, a Hitler Youth Carnival was being held, and Rudy was intent on winning four events: the 1500, 400, 200, and of course the 100. He liked his new Hitler Youth leaders and wanted to please them, and he wanted to show his old friend Dwitzer a thing or two. Four gold medals, he said to Liesel one afternoon when she did laps with him at Hubert Oval, like Giselle Owens back in 36. "You're not still obsessed with him, are you?" Rudy's feet rhymed with his breathing. "Not really, but it would be nice, wouldn't it? It would show all those bastards who said I was crazy. They had seen that I wasn't so stupid after all." "But can you really win all four events?" They slowed to a stop at the end of the track, and Rudy placed his hands on his hips. "I have to." For 6 weeks he trained, and when the day of the carnival arrived in mid-August, the sky was hot, sun, and cloudless. The grass was overrun with Hitler Youth parents and a glut of brown-shirted leaders. Rudy Steiner was in peak condition. "Look," he pointed out, "there is Deutscher." Through the cluster of crowds, the blonde epitome of Hitler Youth standards was giving instructions to two members of his division. They were nodding and occasionally stretching. One of them shielded his eyes from the sun like a salute. "You want to say hello?" Liesel asked. "No thanks, I'll do that later." Um, when I've won, the words were not spoken, but they were definitely there, somewhere between Rudy's blue eyes and Dutcher's advisory hands. There was the obligatory match around the grounds, the anthem, Hail Hitler, only then could they begin. When Rudy's age group was called for the 1500, Liesel wished him luck in a typically German manner. "Hals and Beinbruch, so Karl." She told him to break his neck and leg. Boys collected themselves on the far side of the circular field. Some stretched, some focused, and the rest were there because they had to be. Next to Lisa, Rudy's mother, Barbara, sat with her youngest children. A thin blanket was brimming with kids and loosened grass. "Can you see Rudy?" she asked them. "He's the only one the far left." Barbara Steiner was a kind of woman whose hair always looked recently combed. "Where?" said one of the girls, probably Bettina, the youngest. "I can't see him at all." That last one. "No, not there, there." They were still in identification process when the starter's gun gave it off its smoke and sound. The small signers rushed to the fence. For the first lap, a group of seven boys led the field. On the second, it dropped to five, and on the next lap, four. Rudy was the fourth runner on every lap until the last. A man on the right was saying that the boy coming second looked the best. He was the tallest. "You wait," he told his non-plus wife, "with 200 left, he'll break away." The man was so strong. Uh, a, ga- a gargantum brown-shirted official informed the group that there was one lap to go. He certainly wasn't suffering under the ration system. He called out as the lead the pack crossed the line, and it was not the second boy who accelerated, but the fourth, and he was 200 meters early. Rudy ran. He did not look back at any stage. Like an elastic rope, he lengthened his lead until any thought of someone else winning snapped altogether. He took himself around the track as the three runners behind him fought each other for the scraps. In home stretch, there was nothing but blonde hair and space.
Thank you, Hassan. That's enough for you. Thank you very much. So,
Okay.
since the boy is taking part in four races, the 1500, remember, the 400, the 200, and of course the 100. Now it's the longest one. And now he's taking the lead now. He used to be four or number four, and now he is taking the lead. I want someone else to complete. Who's ready? Please, guys, be more active. Put your hands up. So I pick another one. Who wants to read, guys? Who wants to read? Layan, are you ready to read? Layan has a problem with her mic. So I'll go to Haya. Haya, can you read? Haya, if you are following up.
Master, the page doesn't appear to me because the internet is not good.
Okay, no problem. No problem, Haya. I'll take another person. Alia Walid, can you read, Alia? Alia? Alia, I haven't heard your voice for ages, Alia. Alia Walid. Okay, I'll go on reading till the end of this session. We still have about 3 minutes before the end, or 4. When he crossed the line, so it's a race now. Rudy is taking part in it. As you know, he is a runner, and he is infatuated with Jesse Owens, the American runner who won 4 medals in 1936, about 6 years ago. He didn't stop. He didn't raise his arm. There wasn't even a bent over relief. He simply walked another 20 meters and eventually looked over his shoulder to watch the others cross the line. Yani he was 20 meters ahead. On the way back to his family, he met first with his leaders and then with Franz Deutscher. They both nodded. Steiner, Deutscher. Okay, looks like all those laps I gave you paid off. Deutscher used to be his leader in the German or the Hitler Youth, remember? And they didn't like each other. Looks like it. He would not smile until he'd won all 4. Rudy answered the boy back without a smile until he had won all 4 races. A point for later reference. Not only was Rudy recognized now as a good school student, he was a gifted athlete too. So Liesel is a gifted athlete now. For Liesel, there was the 400 meters race. She finished 7th. She took part in the race and she finished 7th, then 4th in her heat of the 200. As we know, Rudy won them all. All she could see up ahead were the hamstrings and bobbing ponytails of the girls in front. In the long jump, she enjoyed the sand packed around her feet more than any distance, and the shot put wasn't her greatest moment either. This day, she realized was Rudy's, not hers. In the 400 final, he led from the backstretch to the end, and he won the 200 only narrowly. He won the 3 of them, 100, 400, sorry, 200, 400, 1,500. You getting tired? Liesel asked him. It was early afternoon by then. Of course not. He was breathing heavily and stretching his calves. What are you talking about, Zaumensch? I'm not the one who gets tired. What the hell would you know? When the heats of the 100 were cold, he rose slowly to his feet and followed the trail or the trails of adolescents toward the track. Liesel went after him. Hey, Rudy. She pulled at his shirt sleeves. Good luck before the last race, the most difficult one. You know, the 100 meter race is the most difficult of them all. I'm not tired, he said. I know, she answered. He winked at her. He was tired. In his heat, Rudy slowed to finish second, and after 10 minutes of other races, the final was called. 2 other boys had looked formidable, and Liesel had a feeling in her stomach that Rudy could not win this one. Tommy Muller, who'd finished second to last in his heat, second to last means the one before the last, stood with her at the fence. He'll win it, he informed her. Talking about Rudy, she answered, I know. No, he won't. Who said this? When the finalists reached the starting line, Rudy dropped to his knees and began digging starting holes with his hands. balding, brown shirt, wasted no time in walking over and telling him to cut it out. Liesel watched the adult finger